Let's go back in time. Imagine you're standing on the muddy bank of a little river in ancient Italy. There are no marble temples, no grand arenas, nothing like that. It's just a handful of wooden huts with a little smoke curling up into the sky. It's pretty much impossible to believe that this quiet, kind of unremarkable little settlement would one day rule millions of people and literally shape the world we live in. So that brings us to the big question, the one we're going to tackle today. How on earth did a tiny village of shepherds manage to build the greatest, most influential empire the ancient world had ever seen? Well, let's dive in and find out. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this transformation. It's absolutely staggering. You start with a few huts on a riverbank, a couple hundred shepherds, really just a single settlement. And what does it become? An empire of marble, ruling over 60 million people across 3 different continents. The journey from point A to point B, wow, it's one of the greatest stories in all of human history. Okay, so to really get how they pulled this off, we have to go right back to the beginning. Because as it turns out, Rome had a few, well, you could almost call them unfair advantages right from day one. You see, Rome's first secret weapon wasn't an army or a great general. It was its location. The city was built on what you can only call geographic genius. You've got the Tiber River, which meant fresh water and a direct highway for trade. Then you have the famous 7 hills, giving them natural protection from attackers. It was also sitting at a perfect crossroads connecting the north and the south. And it was right near ancient salt routes, which brought in a ton of early wealth. You know, in history, sometimes it's not about who's strongest. It's about being in the right place at the right time. Now, of course, every great city needs a powerful origin story, a legend. And Rome's is a classic. It's the story of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers, abandoned as babies and left to die, but miraculously rescued and nursed by a she-wolf. When they grew up, they decided to found a city, but they argued over who should rule it. The conflict got so bad that Romulus ended up killing his own brother, Remus, and then named the city after himself, Rome. So, is that story literally true? Almost certainly not. But honestly, that completely misses the point. The power of that myth was the belief it created. It gave the Romans this unshakable idea that their city was born from strength, from sacrifice, and from some kind of divine destiny. They didn't just exist, they truly believed they were meant to rule. And that powerful sense of destiny is what fueled their next great innovation. See, after their early phase of being ruled by a series of kings, the Romans made this incredibly radical political shift, one that would define them for hundreds of years to come. For its first couple of centuries, Rome had kings. But the last one, a guy known as Tarquin the Proud, he was a real tyrant. After his family committed this horrible crime, the people had just had enough. They rose up, kicked him out, and made a collective promise to each other. Never again. Never again would one man have that much power. And so, in the year 509 BCE, they created something totally new. Power wasn't going to be in the hands of one person anymore. It was going to be shared among elected officials and a powerful Senate. This was the birth of the Roman Republic. But let's be clear, this new republic was a long way from a perfect democracy. Roman society was basically split right down the middle. On one side, you had the patricians. These were the wealthy, elite families who controlled the Senate and held all the power. And on the other side, you had the plebeians, the common folk, the farmers, the soldiers, the workers, who were the real backbone of the city, but had to fight tooth and nail for every single right they got. And that tension right there reveals Rome's next secret weapon. You know, any other city might have just collapsed into civil war, but Rome adapted. The plebeians got organized, they demanded more rights, and the patricians, who were smart enough to see the danger, eventually gave in on some things. Rome learned how to bend without breaking, and this political flexibility, it turned out to be an incredible source of strength. So, with a pretty stable political system now in place, Rome started to look outward. It didn't just wake up one day as a superpower, though. No, it became one through centuries of constant, brutal warfare. It was forged in a crucible of conflict. The Roman way of war was, well, it was different. They weren't just disciplined. They were obsessive learners. Here's how it worked. They'd go fight a battle, and, especially in the early days, they'd often lose. But for Rome, a defeat wasn't the end of the story. It was a lesson. They would study exactly what went wrong, adapt their tactics, raise a whole new army, and then go right back and win. They just had this incredible refusal to quit. And this relentless system of theirs was about to face its ultimate test. It was going to go up against the other great power in the Mediterranean, the massive, wealthy, commercial empire of Carthage.
This wasn't just another war. This was for control of the known world.
It was a true clash of opposites. Rome was the rising dominant land power, while Carthage absolutely ruled the seas. Carthage's genius general, Hannibal, even marched an army with war elephants over the Alps, bringing Rome to the very brink of total collapse. But true to form, Rome just refused to surrender. It adapted, it endured, and in the end, it completely and utterly destroyed its rival.
And this brings us to one of the great ironies in all of history. It was this total victory, this unbelievable success, that actually planted the seeds for the Republic's own destruction and led directly to the birth of the Roman Empire.
See, winning brought in unimaginable wealth, land, and power. And all that power started to get concentrated in the hands of these wildly successful generals, guys like Julius Caesar. Their armies became more loyal to them personally than they were to the state back in Rome. And all that ambition and private power inevitably exploded into a series of devastating civil wars.
The final critical moments happened pretty fast. The Republic, which had lasted for nearly 500 years, was basically dealt a death blow when Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE. Out of the chaos that followed, his heir, Augustus, came out on top, and in 27 BCE, he became Rome's very first emperor. Now, the absolute brilliance of Augustus was how he did this. He never, ever called himself a king. That was still a dirty word in Rome. Instead, he claimed he was just restoring the Republic. But in reality, it was a clever fiction. All the real, meaningful power was now in the hands of one man. The empire had officially begun.
So, as we wrap up this incredible journey from a few huts to a global empire, what were the real secrets to Rome's success? What are the big takeaways from this unprecedented rise to power?
So why did Rome make it when so many others failed? Well, a few big reasons. It adopted instead of collapsing when things got tough. It built systems, we're talking laws, roads, aqueducts, that held the whole thing together, not just armies. And, maybe most importantly, it had this unique policy of turning the enemies it conquered into allies and eventually into Roman citizens themselves. That whole policy of inclusion was part of a bigger idea. Rome didn't just destroy the cultures it conquered, it absorbed them. It took their gods, their technologies, their best ideas, and it made them Roman. And that, right there, that was perhaps its greatest and most enduring strength.
Today, obviously, the physical Roman Empire is long gone. Its legions aren't marching anymore. But think about it. It's laws that still shape our courts. It's engineering that still inspires our cities. Its very ideas about government, are they truly gone? Or are we, in so many ways, still living in a world that Rome built?